I'm gonna be honest with you. We're about, at the time of this recording, we're about a little less than a week away from the return of this podcast. And originally, I was supposed to, be constantly recording podcast episodes so I could catch up. And and after this one, I have episode 6, 7, 8, and 9 coming out after this one. So I still have four more lined up ahead. And I'll probably have at least one more um caught up. So I'm pretty well caught up. But anyways, let's get this podcast started. Hello and welcome back to the PBT, or the podcast before time. Um as always, I am your host. I'm Caleb Lane, and for those of you who are new to the podcast, this is where we look at different Land Before Time topics. Right now, we're going through all the movies one by one and also reading a fan fiction. And, the fan fiction we're reading now is like really, really, really interesting so far. And I think we're almost halfway through, but I don't think we're quite halfway through. I think we might be halfway through, but not quite. I don't think we're quite halfway through with not the podcast, the fan fiction, but it just makes sense. Um, that we would be about halfway through, because I remember I think we're starting this week on chapter 15, and I think there were like 32 chapters in the fan fiction, so we have another few more weeks of the fan fiction. Um, but anyways, let's get into this podcast episode about the Big Freeze. Now, the Big Freeze is the eighth movie in the Land Before Time movie series, and in my opinion, it's one of those rare ones after the fifth movie that was like really really good. Like I actually like really enjoyed this one. I mean, it was kind of like a sad, you know, movie. I everyone's always like, "Ooh, Caleb, the first one is sad." And then I'm over here being like, "Yeah, it's sad, but for the first movie is sad, in its own way. But then you have the eighth movie, which is kind of sad in you know, completely different, way. And we'll get more into it, when we do our little summary thing in just a minute. But at the same time, it's like, you know, but you have the first movie, which is obviously, sad because, Littlefoot's mother dying and other things that we've talked about before, but we're not going to talk about it on this episode, if you know what I mean. But yeah, stuff like that makes the first movie really sad. But then you come on and watch the eighth movie, which is called The Big Freeze. You you notice that the herd of three spike tails. I almost said three horns. I've been talking to Candace for too much. But anyways, so this pack or group of three horns comes up, and they're like trying to, like, quote unquote adopt Spike. And, and we'll get more into it. And, like, now, it says Ducky's relationship with her brother Spike becomes rambunctious and turbulent when he repeatedly keeps her awake at night with his snoring. And after he ate her tree stars, which their mother packed specifically for her on their first day of school, she tells Sarah about her feelings and confides that she does not know how to express them. Sarah agrees to teach her. Meanwhile, the children are attending a school in which they are taught by an old Pachyrhinosaurus named Mr. Thicknose, who professes to have been everywhere and seen everything. Littlefoot eagerly questions the topics they cover to the old dinosaur's irritation. Eventually, Mr. Thicknose complains to Grandpa Longneck about Littlefoot's behavior. Littlefoot's grandpa, knowing Littlefoot meant no harm, explains to him why he must be more respectful to Mr. Thicknose. Meanwhile, as Ducky treats Spike coldly, Spike meets and befriends Tippy, a young dinosaur from a migrating spiketail herd that has recently arrived in the Great Valley. Ducky begins to miss Spike when he spends more and more time with the spiketail herd. One day, the entire valley is surprised by an overnight snowfall, while the children together have fun frolicking in the snow. The adults complained that Mr. Thicknose, purportedly the wisest in all the valley, did not warn them about this impending weather and suspect that he does not know as much as he claims. As time goes on, the dinosaurs begin to suffer from the freezing temperatures through the Big Freeze and the lack of food growth. The spiketail herd leaves as they consume more food than most species. Tippy's mother asks Ducky and Spike's mother, Mama Swimmer, if she can take Spike along during the cold time. Mama Swimmer decides that Spike should choose between staying in the valley or leaving with the Spiketails. Spike is unsure, so Ducky angrily tells him to leave, which he agrees to do. Afterwards, however, she regrets her actions and later sneaks away to follow the herd. When her friends find out, they head off into the mysterious beyond to find her, but are interrupted by Mr. Thicknose, who decides to accompany them. After several mishaps, they encounter a sharp tooth, but the kids defeat it with a giant snowball. In the process, they join up with Ducky, who was being chased by it earlier. Soon, they came across a frozen pool of water that they accidentally break. Underneath the ice is a warm spring, and they notice there is lush food nearby. While they relax in the water and feed, Mr. Thicknose confesses that most of his knowledge comes from secondary sources, fraud. He listened to the stories of other travelers when he was a child, and in his adult years he shared those stories to the children in the valley. The sharp tooth from earlier attacks them again, but Mr. Thicknose saves the children by pushing a log off the cliff, causing the sharp tooth to trip onto it and roll off a cliff to its unknown fate. Later, the group tries to contact the valley's residents, but find that a wall of snow has blocked them from entry. Ducky, remembering what Sarah taught her, exhorts Sarah to get riled at the snow. Sarah does snow, and her enraged screaming causes the snowfall, enabling the valley's residents to pass through. Meanwhile, the spiketail herd is starving until Spike picks up the spring scent. He leads the spiketails there and reunites with Ducky. However, he falls into a deep part of the spring and is unable to swim. Mama Swimmer jumps in to save him. When she places him on the dry ground again, Tippy's mother says that Spike should stay with his family. You don't say. rather than her herd. Ducky promises to Spike that she will not get angry at him again whenever he snores ever again. So that was that. And I have a couple of, things to say about that. Um, First of all, like I said, I think it's one of the saddest movies in the series because you think about it, you have, Ducky and Spike who are, so close, and then these three horns. I have got to stop saying three horns. These spike tails just came out of nowhere, and they're like, "Oh, Spike's ours now," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 like no, 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 he is not." But and I say this not really disrespectfully, but I hated Tippy's mother. She annoyed the out of me. I don't know what it is, but she was just so annoying. I don't know if it was because she was trying so hard to get Spike to come with the other Spike tails. But she's just really annoying. And the first time through watching the movie, we were all like, "Did you? Oh my God! Is he going to go with the other Spike tails? Is he going to leave Ducky and the others, behind and go live off with this weird group of Spike tails just dropped by?" But you know, and they were literally like, "I know he's lived here his entire life, and I know we've only been here for like 10 minutes, but can he come live with us?" Like, no. And like I said, I'm glad he made the right decision, which is, staying in the valley. And I'm also so glad that him and Ducky made up. Because, I feel like I really love the relationship between, Ducky and Spike, the brother sister relationship type thing. Like, it's so sweet. And as all of you know, Ducky's a swimmer and Spike is a spike tail, so they're different species, which I like. I like this aspect of the Land Before Time because it gives not only does it give you know give an insight into like adoption and stuff, but it also gives an insight into like other things because Spike doesn't talk, and there's certain you know characteristics of Spike that that people like the autistic community can relate to, which I think is really cool. And I say that I think it's really cool, and I don't think that was their idea. When it came to um, making the movie, but when they were making the original movie and the script and stuff in the 80s, but now that it's 2025, it just makes it like so relatable to like different like autistic people who are, also nonverbal like Spike. So that's cool. But anyways, guys, we are going to be getting into the fan fiction. Betrayal. Oblivious to Petrie's fate, Littlefoot and the others played on, having the time of their lives. It was not until the bright circle touched the top of the shelter rock did they realize they were one short of a full group. "Where is Petrie?" Sarah asked. "Yeah, he should be here by now," Allie said. "We all agreed to meet here. First thing, we did," Ducky added. "Let's go and see. Let's go and see if he's still at home," Littlefoot decided. Everyone agreed, and they made their way to the cave. When they arrived, Ducky climbed up to the entrance to ask his mother about her son's whereabouts. "I'm sorry, Ducky, but he already left. I'm surprised he didn't meet up with you all," she said, starting to worry. "That is all right," Ducky replied cheerfully. "I am sure he just could not find us. I am." With that, she climbed down to the ground to tell the others. "Where could he be?" Littlefoot wondered aloud. "Maybe Ducky was right," Allie said. "Maybe he just couldn't find us and he's looking for us right now." Sarah was skeptical. We we agreed to meet at Watcher's Hill last night," she said. "You think he forgot? Well, maybe. Or perhaps he's hurt himself." And, "Oh, no, 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 no," Ducky cried in horror, interrupting Allie. "Do you really think he might be hurt?" "It's possible," Allie replied. "Well, we won't know unless we find him," Littlefoot stated. "Let's split up and look for him, and we'll meet at Peacekeeper's Ledge when the bright circle touches Three-Horn Peak." Everyone nodded, and they set off, each in a different direction. Littlefoot took his search near to the Thundering Falls. Allie looked around to Boulder Pass, and Sarah checked the place where the new water had once been. Together, Ducky and Spike looked around the sinking sands, thinking Petrie might be in the sheltering grass. However, when they reached the tar pit, Ducky started to have second thoughts about going across. The last time they tried to do that, they nearly died and ended up being punished by their parents. However, that had been a long time ago, even before Chomper had hatched. So she took a deep breath and took her place on Spike's back. "Oh, Spike," she said, "the last time we tried this, it did not work. No, no, no. But you are bigger now, and I know you can make it this time. You can." Spike, encouraged by Ducky's words, took a long run up and jumped off the edge and just landed on the nearest rock. He continued to jump from rock to rock, sometimes slipping, but never falling in. As he made his way over, Ducky became more and more relaxed. "You are doing it, Spike, you are." "Yep, yep, yep," she cried cheerfully. At last, Spike reached the other side and stopped to rest. The rest quickly became a light nap, and Ducky decided to search for Petrie alone rather than wake Spike up. She combed the grass as quickly as she could, wanting to move on. Eventually, she had looked through the entire area and decided to give up and search elsewhere. She returned to Spike, who was still cut from for the count. She sighed in annoyance. Waking Spike up had never been an easy task, so she decided to try a new approach. She picked up a small pebble lying nearby and brought it down on Spike's head, repeatedly. It took quite a few beatings, but at long last he opened his eyes and stood up, completely oblivious to the rock's effect. Ducky sighed and threw the pebble away. She realized that Spike had woken up of his own accord, and she may as well have not bothered trying in the first place. Petrie is not here, Spike. No, no, no. Let us look in some other place, she said. With that, Spike once again started to jump from rock to rock. However, Ducky, who had been disheartened by not finding Petrie, was not holding on tightly. As Spike took an, an exceptionally large jump, Ducky slipped off his back and fell toward the tar below. Littlefoot, Allie, and Sarah had all met up together with no news of Petrie's whereabouts. "Where is he?" Sarah cried out, in frustration. Before anyone could answer, screams reached their ears. "Who is that?" Littlefoot asked. They stopped for a moment to listen. Then Allie gasped. "It's Ducky. She's in trouble," she exclaimed. "Come on," Sarah yelled. "Let's go see what's wrong." The three of them were away like a shot, hoping Ducky was all right. Meanwhile, Petrie had been discovered by Ark and was being confronted by Toronto. "Petrie, I can explain," he began, but Petrie interrupted before he had a chance to go on. "Why you do this again, Uncle?" he asked, close to tears. "Why you want power so bad?" Toronto sighed. "This is not about power, Petrie," he said. "This is about giving help to those who need it." Toronto told him about the legend of the lost souls, leaving out the part about the souls granting their savior with awesome powers. Petrie listened intently, having forgotten what Allie had told him before. "So you see, Petrie, I'm doing this to save the lost souls. This is for no personal gain. I'm just trying to help," he finished. Sadly, Petrie was a flyer who was very easily led. As Toronto went on and on, Petrie started to believe him. "Me believe you, Uncle," Petrie said earnestly when Toronto had told him everything. "Me want to help as well." Toronto grinned. "Thank you, Petrie," he said. "I need all the help I can get." "Then me get friends to help Uncle too," Petrie squawked excitedly. "No, Petrie," Toronto snapped. Then his voice returned to normal. "I'm sorry, but we cannot trust landwalkers to help us, be they friend or foe." Petrie was confused. "But me have landwalker friends, and me can trust them," Petrie said. Toronto nodded. "Of course you can, usually. But when it comes to and landwalker helping out on Flyer, old friendships are forgotten. Don't forget, landwalkers are the ones who stole the souls of the fires and the flyers in the past to begin with." Again, Petrie was taken in by every one of Toronto's lies. While he still liked his friends, he was now sure that he could not trust them. "You right, Uncle," he said. "Friends not to be trusted. We can do this without them anyway." "That's right, Petrie. Now remember, never tell anyone, not even your mother, about what we are doing. No one will believe that we are doing this for good. The landwalkers hate us, you know. They are jealous of our abilities. We can fly high, while all they can do is watch from below." His voice became a whisper. "Don't trust any of them." For one moment, Petrie was about to protest, but once again he was fooled by Toronto's words. So, you know, we have another chapter to read, but pausing there for a second, you, you know, once again we have, Toronto trying to, start shit and like, you know how it is. But let's read the next chapter. You know how it is. Like, what we're reading, Rescue Mission. At last, Littlefoot, Sarah, and Allie reached the sinking sands. They could easily see Spike trying to fish Ducky out of the black liquid. However, she was thrashing about so much she was unable to get hold of her. No, no, not again, Littlefoot cried in frustration. Again? Allie echoed, not knowing about the previous sinking sands incident. I'll tell you some other time. We have to help Spike get her out, Littlefoot replied. Allie and Sarah nodded. They started to jump from rock to rock, just as Spike had done moments ago. Soon enough, they reached the large rock Spike was on, and instantly they all started to bob their heads down into the murky lake, trying to grab Ducky. It was impossible to see underneath the surface, and they constantly had to come up for air again. Although Littlefoot and Allie had an advantage due to their long necks, they had no more luck than Sarah or Spike. What are we going to do? Sarah cried. Allie looked over to the sheltering grass and had an idea. Keep trying to get her out, she told the others. I'll be back in a moment. She made her way over to the grass and frantically started to search around for something. What's she doing? Sarah cried in aspiration. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough, Littlefoot replied. Now you heard her. We have to keep trying. With that, he took a deep breath and plunged his head under the surface again. Sarah looked at Allie. Time was running out. At the same time, Toronto showed Petrie how they would get into the cave. The four flyers entered the cave and traveled through the lava tunnel until they could go no further. As you can see, the firewater is very low now, and we shall soon be able to get to the entrance and clear away the last of those rocks by tomorrow, Petrie, Toronto exclaimed. Petrie nodded happily. And then we free lost souls, he cheered. Toronto smiled to see his nephew so happy. But Ark was about to spoil the moment. It took just one earthshake to completely block off the entrance, he said. What if it's been blocked again by all those earthshakes we had recently? We shouldn't have to worry about that possibility until we see if it has happened or not, Rax answered. Toronto nodded. He is right. We cannot allow our morale to drop over something which could be nothing at all, he declared. Though secretly, he was now worried. Maybe there's another way in, suggested Petrie. Toronto shook his head. There is one other way through the river, but we would have to make our way through a tunnel filled with water, and our kind is not built for swimming. Petrie was downcast. Too bad Ducky no can help, he said sadly. Toronto lifted Petrie's beak with his finger. Don't worry, he said kindly. We will get through soon enough. Petrie nodded, with a face of determination. Yes, he agreed. We will. Ark and Rax chuckled silently behind them. Back at the sinking sands, Allie was finally returned to the others. She was holding a large tree branch in her mouth. She tapped Littlefoot on the back with it. He rose out of the tar and gasped for breath. So we got Petrie over here, being, what's the word? Like coerced into believing Toronto's lies. And I'm also wondering, how it's gonna come about. And then we also have, Pete, the others over there who are trying to get Ducky out of a, tar pit. So, all right, let's continue. How's that gonna help? He asked. Allie dropped the branch on the rock. We can lower this over the sand and Ducky can grab onto it. Then we can pull her out. It won't stir the sand as much as her heads do, so we should be able to see her easily, she explained. The others nodded and they started to move the branch into the liquid. Grab the branch, Ducky, Sarah cried. Come on, Allie encouraged. You can do it, Littlefoot added. Ducky, who could finally surface now. The others were no longer thrashing around in the tar, made a lunge for it. Everyone drew in breath sharply as she reached out. She missed the first time and went under, but she resurfaced and tried again. This time she just made it. Immediately, the others grabbed the branch in their jaws and pulled it out, with Ducky clinging onto the end. They set her down on the rock, and Spike, whining like a dog, licked her again and again, half laughing, half coughing. She pushed him away affectionately. Are you okay? Littlefoot asked. An exhausted Ducky nodded her head slowly, too tired to speak. Everyone sighed in relief. You better take Ducky home to rest, Spike, Littlefoot said. We'll keep looking for Petrie in the meantime, Allie agreed. I guess we'll meet you tomorrow, same time, same place, Sarah added. Spike nodded, and holding Ducky gently in his jaws, hopped back to dry land and headed for home. Littlefoot, Allie, and Sarah jumped back to the edge as well, but it was almost noon, so they decided to head back to their homes for lunch. Allie went with Littlefoot, not having a family nearby to go to. There's nothing like rescuing a friend from the jaws of death to wake you up in the morning, she said, trying to laugh about the danger Ducky had just been in. I think I would choose a dip in an ice-cold river to wake me up instead any day, Littlefoot replied, smiling weakly. We never did find Petrie, Allie said, a little downcast. Well, there's always tomorrow, Littlefoot said, trying to be optimistic. Maybe he just felt like being alone, and he'll tell us tomorrow. Maybe, Allie replied. She decided to change the subject. What do you mean by saying not again when we saw Ducky in that tar pit? Littlefoot had never had the time to tell Allie about all the adventures he had been through before and after they had met. So he began with how he had been faced with the task of seeking out the Great Valley. It was a time of relative peace for the dinosaurs now. Although they could not find Petrie, they took time to relax, not knowing that they had been betrayed. Petrie returned home with his uncle. When they arrived, Petrie's mother came to speak to him. Ducky was here looking for you earlier, she said. Have you been out looking for them? It was not until now that Petrie realized that he had forsaken his friends in spite of promising to meet up with them. Me was looking for them, Mama, he lied. Me no find them yet, but me look again after lunch, so they all settled down to enjoy a peaceful meal together. Me just hope others no get mad at Petrie later, he thought to himself as he chewed on a tree star. Toronto looked at his nephew. Do not betray me, Petrie, he thought silently. To be continued. And that is where we are going to end the fan fiction today. Like I said, this fan fiction, is really interesting so far, and I can't wait to continue it at a different next week. All right, we are going to end off doing a little Q&A segment. So, all right, first question, where would you never live? Okay, I would never live in uh probably California. Like California is like really like beautiful, but I don't think I would want to like live there. Maybe like go on vacation there one day, long go to like other places, but like LA stuff like that. But never like move there. Do you like to cuddle with my dog? Yes. With my cat? Yes. With the people? No. No. Well, actually, it depends. Like, and it's not really like cuddling, but because I don't cuddle, it's like weird as hell. But is there a food you loved as a kid but hate as an adult? Jello. I hate Jello. So story time. About 5 years ago, I got like really really sick, and I almost died, and so they had to like put me on a clear liquid diet, which meant you can't eat anything but water and Jello. So now, even 5 years later, when I like when I look at the, Jello, like I can't even look at Jello and like the jiggly without getting like nauseous. So I can't even like look at Jello anymore because because it makes me nauseous, and then getting nauseous will trigger my emetophobia. But that's one of the. But I used to love Jello as a kid. I used to like eat it, like it all the time, but now I just cannot eat it. It's like gross. No, thank you. No, 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 thank you. Have you ever been in a submarine? No, I have not. Which song do you hate the most? Oh, what's it called? What's it called? Baby Shark, do 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 do. Do you know that one? Also, tell me how that song managed to make its way onto the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Like, why? It's literally annoying as frick, you know? But, whatever. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? So I consider myself an introvert, but I'm kind of in between. Because, like, if I don't know you, like, I won't talk to you at all. I'll pretend you're not there. But once I get to know you, and once we get to know each other, like, I never shut up. Like, it's like, you know, and, it's like really, really weird. But, Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, which story is best to you? Harry Potter, obviously. Also, if you like Harry Potter too, comment down below your Hogwarts house. Um, I'm obviously a Slytherin. Um, yes, I'm a Slytherin. And like one time I was hanging out with kids one time, and we were talking about Harry Potter, and I mentioned that I was a Slytherin, and I made an 8-year-old cry. I felt so bad. But still, it was kind of funny though, because I was like, oh, yeah, I'm a Slytherin, and then she's like, I felt so bad, but at the same time, it was funny as hell. Um, who is your favorite superhero? My favorite superhero. Well, who is my favorite superhero? I know who my favorite supervillain is. My favorite supervillain is Harley Quinn. But my favorite superhero, Superman. I don't know. Definitely not Iron Man. I think Superman. Maybe Batman. Either Batman or Superman. Um, but like I said, yeah, my favorite super villain is Harley Quinn. especially the Margot Robbie version of Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad, which is an amazing movie. You should watch it if you haven't. Um, but like, but let's go back for a minute and consider the villains in the Land Before Time series. I think my favorite villain from the Land Before Time series was probably, wait, who was it? I really liked the little like duo, like the gator type thing and the bird. I think it was. I think it's like Itchy and Dill or something. I think I think those are my favorites. All right, we have. Have you ever played golf? I have not, and it's really boring because my grandpa, he dead now, but when he was alive, he would every time we went over to grandpa's house, he would have golf on TV. So well, he wasn't my grandpa; he was my great grandfather. Um, he would always have golf on TV every time he came over, and he'd just be sitting there in his living room, sitting area, just sitting there watching golf. And I'm like, how do you watch this stuff? So I just went on my Kindle. This was back when I didn't have a phone when I was a kid. But I would just go on my Kindle and play Candy Crush while he just while the adults sat there and talked and watched golf. Not that I can really understand why. All right, last question. Do you wake up with a smile? Not really. The first thing I always ask myself when I wake up is probably, do I have to pee? I know that's TMI, but that's pretty much how it happens. All right, let's end off with a couple of announcements. As always, these episodes are capped at 45 minutes, so maybe maybe less, maybe more, depending, but around the 45-minute mark. Um, so this episode is episode 9 of the podcast, which honestly so amazing. Um, and we also have, and this is the first time I'm mentioning it because I filmed the other episodes before I decided to do this. But in November, on November 16th, which is a Sunday, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to be hosting the first ever LBT Fan Awards. And the first award winner has already been announced, which is the LBT Fan Club Honor Award, or the Honor Award for short, which we will be given to, which we have decided, my team and I, we have decided to give it to our good friend Candace Hudson, who, as many of you know, played Sarah in the original and the first 3 sequels. So that is really fun. Um, so the episode. So if you haven't already, submit your votes. I don't know how that's gonna we're doing that because I'm filming this before we figure it out. But by the time you hear this, you the you'll be able to, you will know exactly how and when it works and stuff. Also, in case you haven't noticed on YouTube, my YouTube watchers, you may have noticed that I have started to do YouTube exclusive videos. This isn't stuff you have to pay for. This is just videos that will only be available on YouTube and not anywhere else. And I have two videos out. I have one video called The Truth About Sarah, another video called The Truth About Allie, and a third video called The Truth About Littlefoot, which is not out at the time of this recording, but is scheduled to come out on September 24th at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Or maybe it'll be Eastern Time, but I don't know yet. Probably 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. I don't know why I do it that late, but you know. But anyways, guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today's episode. Thanks for, as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back here next week with another one. Bye.